Hey everyone, and welcome to the Arai News Live June edition. Welcome appreciate you guys joining us. As you know, this is our live video counterpart to our email newsletter that goes out every month. If you guys haven't gotten that email, go to AraiAmericas.com and join up. We send out monthly updates on new graphics, new features, new racing events, tech, and a lot of stuff that you might be interested in. Some you might not be, but we pad every place to go. Again, my name is Brian, your host. I appreciate you joining us. Like and subscribe if you want. Like helps us get out there. Comment if you want. That helps get out there. Subscribe if you are interested in learning more about Arai. Suggest topics for new episodes if you'd like, or even on the newsletter that comes out in emails. Knowing what you guys want helps us deliver what you guys want. Today's episode, we are joined by Justin Allgaier, a NASCAR racer for JR Motorsports. We appreciate him coming out. Justin, are you there?
I'm here, buddy. Good to be.
But basically, we talked for a little bit about the relationship helmets and Arai. A lot of people don't know Arai does a lot of auto helmets, Formula One, IndyCar, and of course NASCAR. We joked about it's the best kept secret, if you will. I made the running joke that we had been supporting Jeff Gordon for more than 10 years before someone commented and asked me, hey, did you know Jeff Gordon wore Arai helmets? Of course I did. We're the ones who helped him out. But, it's one of those things where it's interesting that a lot of people don't know, but we cut our teeth in motorcycles. But Justin's been in Arai for quite
some times where between team sponsorships and things of that nature kind of out of my control, I've had to wear some other brands kind of in the interim, but really for the majority of it, whether that be on the NASCAR side or even on the dirt track side, which I still get to do quite a bit, I've been basically in an Arai now for 10 years. And, from what you just mentioned, I mean, the best kept secret, it's amazing to me when people put an Arai on, when people see the Arai and they look at, number one, the build quality. I've been lucky enough to kind of study safety. Obviously, to win races, you got to go fast. But if you're hurting your driver, there's nobody to drive that car to go fast. So, it makes a big difference. And so, for me, safety's always been a key aspect of it, and comfort. And when you find people that look at the safety aspect of it and they look at the build quality, but then they try it on, it's hard to find somebody that just says, oh, no, this is terrible. This is not for me, right? Everybody that tries it on, they're like, oh man, this is great. Why did I not try one of these on before? And I think, over time we've seen that, definitely built a ton of drivers in the Arai helmet. We've got a ton of drivers in Arai helmets right now in the NASCAR world. And it's really special for me because obviously being in Arai for as long as I have, it means a lot.
Appreciate that. It's always nice to know that guys actually appreciate the effort we go into the helmet. It's not just another helmet. There is actually differences between them, and we think we do it better than anyone. Everyone, I'm sure, thinks they do it better than everyone. But I'm going to jump around on my questions. So you mentioned a little bit how comfortable it is, and it's like, how did I not know this, and why didn't I, get into an Arai before? How does that impact? I mean, comfort and your feeling of the helmet. How does it impact your driving? Does it have an impact?
Yeah. So one of the I go dirt racing and you got a 25 lap feature that's over in 15, 16 minutes, right? They're both equally as important to have comfort, right? There's a different comfort level. When I'm running those short races, it's about being able to focus in on those absolute qualifying laps every lap and just really being in the moment. Whereas when you get to the NASCAR side of things and you're in the car for that long duration of time, especially with the G-forces that we feel on our body, the time that you're in the helmet, the heat of the car, comfort makes a huge difference on your mental ability when these races come down and you make a mistake and you speed on pit road. All those little details make a big difference is in whether you're winning or you're not. And that for me, from a comfort standpoint, has been the key is, when I get to the end of a race, I'm fresh. I'm not thinking about, okay, I've got pressure here. I'm not thinking about cooling. I'm not thinking about weight. All of those things play a big part of what we do. And the GP7 especially, I would say for me, probably one of the biggest things that I take away from the GP7 is, wearing ear molds. I feel like sometimes it's easy to get, when you get a helmet that fits properly and it's tight, like it should be, with ear molds in your ears, if they're not made right, or if they're not sitting in your ears perfectly right on that particular. The GP7 has a great ability to kind of wrap the underside of the neck. So just under the cheekbones, it really has a good feel. Under the base of the skull in the back, it has a really good feel. The upper area around your forehead and kind of the sides of your head, you really have that kind of solid contact where you want it, not overly stiff, but you can feel the good contact. But then where the ear molds would sit, I actually have a little bit of space, and I'm able to feel more comfortable with the ear molds, but not feel like I gave up any size or gaps in the helmet. I still feel like there's contact everywhere. I just feel like that, especially with the GP7, I've got a lot of really good clearance in the ear molds, but still have that really locked on feeling where it wraps the bottom of the chin bar there. And I think that a lot of other helmet makes the way that the foam is on the bottom, all in an effort to save weight, which is I understand completely. But you take a lot of comfortability out of the helmet, and you take a lot of safety aspect out of the helmet. And for me, there is no comparison.
Yeah, it is a balance and a struggle to get a helmet to be snug and comfortable, not tight, and trying to get a helmet to fit everybody, because everyone's head shape is different. We have round, long, oval-shaped helmets, intermediate-shaped helmets in motorcycling. In cars, we don't have enough volume to actually create multiple fit packages, so we have to make one helmet fit everybody. And you want it as snug as possible, but as comfortable as possible without being pressure points. So it's good to know you guys. So that was one of my questions, asking about what your impression with the GP7 was, because you started in the GP6, which was our longest-running single model, I think, since 2010. We just replaced it last year with the 7, so it was a 10-year run, and that was an awesome helmet. A lot of people complain we don't change our helmets often enough. But when you make a helmet really good, that good, you don't want to replace it just because. The 7 came along and offered some benefits over the GP6, but for the most part, there was nothing wrong with the GP6. I still like that helmet very much. It was a big step up from the previous model, and the 7 is a nice evolution of the 6.
GP5 original. My very first Arai that I purchased was the GP5. So I actually wore the 5 first, and then switched into the 6. So I've kind of been across the board here. But you mentioned it. The thing that I love is the fact that for 10 years that GP6 was the go-to helmet, right? And I think a lot of times people they jump ship really quickly, and they want to change and make all these adjustments, and a lot of times it's unneeded, unwarranted. It's just because we can, and I think that for me that's been the beauty of seeing the progression from the 5 to still a fantastic helmet, still a helmet that I would wear in a heartbeat. But obviously FIA, they decided that they wanted to make some different changes throughout the course of time, and so that's been a struggle, I know. The GP7, though, one of the things that's interesting is we talked about heat, and the GP7 actually has an extra set of holes on the top of it that the 6 doesn't have. So there's I guess there's 5 holes on the top of the 7, and
5 on the 6, and 7 on the 7.
Okay. That's been a nice feature. That's been over 140, almost 150 that we've recorded, right? I mean, obviously that can alter, based on team and driver. But the temperatures have been a struggle. That's been something that for us has been probably one of the main struggles. Is just keeping the driver cool. But again, going back to what we talked about earlier, comfort, keeping the helmet snug. I think some people get in this mindset that they can loosen the helmet up and it will be cooler, right? Because it's going to flow more air. Well, I can tell you that's all fine and dandy until you take that first impact, and you realize really quickly what it actually comes all the way around the side, gets some air to the front chin bar as well as on top of the helmet. I think that's going to that, we've drugged some other manufacturers that have actually kind of copied and stole some ideas since we've gone down that route. So it's been nice to see that, but it definitely makes a big difference.
Yeah, I'm trying to find actually one of the helmets here, but we did do some innovation, I think, over the last probably 10 years. Everyone had plumbed some air into the side of the chin bar to get air to the mouth, but temperatures were so bad and drivers were suffering so bad, we developed a crown cap that went on top to take advantage of those vent holes. So we decided those are wasted in a NASCAR because they're just sitting there letting heat escape just naturally. So we put a cap on top to push air into the top of the helmet to cool the head, but then we ran a channel down to the side to still feed fresh air to the mouth so the driver's getting fresh air. In most cases, it's air conditioned now, it's filtered. And then, of course, the top of the head, because your head is where all that heat from your body goes up. And if anybody's ever lived in the Northeast where it's cold and your mom says to put a hat on when you go outside, that's because you lose a lot of heat from your head. And when you put a giant cooler or styrofoam insulator on your head like a helmet, you trap all that heat. So we're trying to cool off the top of the head, which is quite a few other manufacturers recognize the value of that, and they have their own version. We'll be polite about that. But in the grand scheme, Arai has always been an innovator. Arai has always set the bar. And it's funny when we talk about people saying, why doesn't Arai evolve more quickly? Why aren't they're not being as aggressive? I have to remind people that we were so far ahead of people decades ago. Our helmet was, the first ventilated helmet in the market in motorcycling. I'm not sure if it was an auto. The first removable liner, first washable helmet liner, first removable liner, quick change shield systems in our motorcycle. First in all. It's minor increments, little evolutions of a design that was groundbreaking 30, 40 years ago. So we're always evolving, making the helmet better. It just doesn't look like it. It's mostly on the inside. We're tweaking and we're improving little things that are hidden inside. And it looks like we're not doing much, but we're just building on a foundation that was so far ahead of its time that it looks like we're kind of just, taking our time about it. And other manufacturers have done leaps and bounds to catch up, and it looks like they're doing these wonderful innovations, and they're just catching up, in my opinion. So it's one of those things where the NASCAR program actually helped us develop that air channel, because now Indy ventilation that was driven by car speed is now taken away. So now we've had to adopt the NASCAR program air channel on top of the IRL, which is a new set of challenges. There's no blower motor. NASCARs have a blower motor. IndyCar has a scoop on the outside of the car that takes the ambient air at speed. So high-speed tracks, tons of air. Road courses, not so much air. So we've had to play with that on how to adapt and improve. And, of course, the hose is up at the top, gets in the airflow, creates drag, creates issues. So it's a whole set of new challenges. But cutting our teeth in NASCAR helped get all the heavy lifting and helped us develop that stuff. So that was really cool. And it is remarkable how you guys can run 120 degrees for hours. I mean, we're ventilating your head. Do you guys also run any cool suits or anything else for the body to keep your body cool?
So I actually just started wearing a cool shirt this past year. Only for the simple fact that, the older systems, I know that there were some systems, quite a few years ago actually, but there were a lot of issues. There weren't a lot of fail-safes in those systems. And going back to safety, right? That's been the pump scalding water through the system. It didn't have any type of regulator to know, hey, the water is being boiled and we need to turn this off. So, there were some drivers that had some issues there. There's a new system out. We started running them in NASCAR. I think some of the IndyCar guys have actually kind of tried to adapt them as well for the same thing you talked about, is the temperatures. It's called a Rainy Vest. It was developed for the military, and actually for the bomb squad in the military. So they're in their big bomb squad suits, and it's really hot, especially some of the countries that they've had to go into, and some of the places here, even in the United States, that they go into and some of the places here, even in the United States, that they go into with those suits on. Inclusive system, self-operating system. I think if you run it in the military form, it's about 7 or 8 pounds total. It's a little lighter for us because we don't run the battery and some of the things that they run, we actually hardwired into the car. But, kind of going back to what you mentioned earlier with the helmets, you mentioned air conditioned, right, which is great. We do run a little cooler box. It's about 10 degrees of ambient, that it cools the air down to kind of blow it through. But the other one that you mentioned that's a big proponent is filtered. We all run a filter system on the air, which does restrict some of the airflow, which is a little disappointing. But on the other hand, if you've ever raced without a filter car, you can refresh. You don't feel groggy. You don't have the headaches. I can remember early on in my racing career, I didn't even run an air blower. I just said, "Oh, I'm a man. I can handle this, and it's going to be great." I about killed myself, unbeknownst to me, just because of all the carbon monoxide fumes that I was breathing in. But I think you mentioned something too. Arai has done a fantastic job of having the key to what we need before we kind of need it, right? Coming up with those safety innovations, coming up with those details that, when we find we have a need, it's a really, I'm not going to say an easy solution because when we finally hit that the right recipe, I guess, it's been fantastic ever since. And I've dealt with you in the past. Some Brian, I deal with Jeff on a regular basis, right? That's who handles a lot of the NASCAR stuff on a day-to-day basis. And the conversations that we have on just innovation, right? What's going on? What's coming? What's happening? It's always fun for me because every time somebody makes a rule or a change, FIA I mentioned already. Here in the United States we deal with Snell, we deal with the SFI, and then obviously over in Europe we deal with. And I think a lot of people don't realize that because again you mentioned visually, there's been a very kind of status quo, right? The 5, the 6, the 7 all have a very very similar look and feel to them. But I can tell you from wearing all three of them, the performance advancements and the safety advancements are truly incredible. So it's been really neat to kind of follow along with that.
Yeah, I always have to remind myself. I watch a lot of YouTube. I have a fairly wide interest in just seeing what people do, and what it's fun to watch a guy build a boat or a car, or God knows what they're doing. And you realize you can't do that. It takes way too long. You realize you can't do that. It takes way too long. You have no idea what's involved. Same thing with the helmets. We bring this to market, and it's this beautiful little simple piece. It's like, wow, but it took us years to perfect, to find out, like you said, the proportions, the recipe, to make sure that the airflow is right. It fits all the helmet sizes. It gives the right flow for the mouth and to the top. The helmet itself, it has to be light but strong. There's only so much you can put into a helmet that people are willing to wear. I mean, the helmet, could it be, could you add more protection? Probably, but the helmet would be unwearable. It would be huge. It would be too heavy. It would be, you couldn't move. So we have to balance. You have to give it. Basically needs to do everything it does when it needs to do it without interfering in anything else. So there's so many things involved. I give Mr. Arai and his team credit for creating this stuff pretty much from nothing. When Arai started, helmets didn't exist. There were no helmets. They built it because Mr. Arai, Senior Hirotaki Arai, was a young man, a foolish, daredevil young man. There's a famous photo of him standing up on his Harley riding down a dirt field at about 35 miles an hour wearing a hat. And it was before he built his first helmet, and no one's ever told me, but I'm pretty sure he crashed once or twice and realized that stupid hurts. And he was a pretty crafty guy, and he made a helmet to protect himself. He lived a need to produce it for the masses, because as motorcycling became more popular. And the cool thing is they still make it the very best they can because stupid still hurts. And we really worry about our customers. And knowing that what we do is limited, what we can do is limited, but out in the real world, crash impact energy is unlimited. And no matter how good we make our helmets, we know there's always a crash that might overwhelm even the best we can do. But knowing we did the best, knowing we didn't compromise, knowing that we said good enough, knowing that we did our best, we can sleep at night, resting that, which is, unfortunate because people, I don't think, appreciate what goes into the helmet. So that brings up.
If I follow up on that real quick, one of the things that's very interesting to me is I hear a lot of people, and this goes for racers, this goes for sponsors, this goes for teams. They question costs of some things, right? And let's be honest, the cost of everything over time has gone up, especially in the last 6 months. It's gone way up, but that's neither here nor there. But over time, things have gone up, and one of the things that is it worth the extra money, right? And I hear that question a lot. And here, Arai is never going to be the cheapest, and I'm perfectly okay with that because I understand the effort and time and energy and the quality of materials that are going into making each one of these helmets. Whether I get on 2 wheels or 4, I know where my trust is at, right? I know that the person that laid that helmet in the mold, the person that's going through in quality control, the materials that are being used, all of that is such an integral part of what we do. And I think that from that standpoint, I tell people, I say, okay, well, yeah, you can buy a budget friendly helmet, and it may look out that my helmet wasn't the appropriate safety that I needed when I take that first big impact, or when I have that tire that blows out, or if I'm on the street and I'm on 2 wheels and somebody pulls out in front of me, that's a valid opportunity to happen. And we're lucky enough in the sport of auto racing, we have a lot of great vendors that, not just in the helmet world, but on the fireproof uniforms and gloves and shoes and the seats and all those things. And what's funny about my particular instance is, so I wear Alpine Stars from head to toe, and I wear Arai for a number of years, and it's interesting to see some of the crossover even between the two worlds, and how the safety aspect of it is still safety, even though it's 2 wheels or 4.
No, it is one of those things where you don't want to question your purchase decision as you're flying over the handlebars, or as you're careening into this catch fence. That's not the time to second guess your choice. And the idea is always, dress for the crash. No one plans on crashing, but the guy in the semi truck, or the grandma who's not paying attention, or the teenager who's tweeting or texting, they don't know that, and they may change your plan for the day. So it's important to recognize, the question really comes down to is how important are you to you? Sometimes it's really hard to reboot the computer. Sometimes you can't just unplug it. So there's no guarantees, though. The world is cruel, and it hurts, like I said. But we do, I think, try harder. We focus only on premium, the best we possibly can make. We look at we take feedback from crashes that you guys do in 4-wheel and, of course, 2-wheel, and we learn from that. We don't we don't design for the test. We design for the reality of the real world. And it's a learning process. We're trying to get the message out that Arai is different, the kind of company, the people who build your helmet. It's not about how much my helmet. Mr. Arai's crashed motorcycles. Aki Arai, third generation's crashed motorcycles. Hirotaki Arai, who formed the company, crashed motorcycles. Mitch Arai actually drove race cars for a living for a while. So they know from what they speak. They've experienced it. And they wear the exact same helmet that we sell to our public. They don't make any special helmets for Mr. Arai. So he wants to be protected, so he makes the best damn helmet he can make, because he wants to be protected. He wants his customers to be protected. So it is again remarkable that they've been able to do that for so long and remain at the top of their field for so long, focusing on the reality of crash.
I think for me, I started racing cars when I was 5. So car racing's kind of always been in my blood and been in my system. But I think when you look at the 2-wheel aspect of things, and you look at the guys and gals that ride, whether that be off-road, motocross, GNCC type aspect of it, or you take the on-road and you go down the here in the United States, Moto America, or you go international and you go to MotoGP or World Superbike. When you being the difference maker, right? I believe in my mind that on 2 wheels, yes, the bike matters, right? The bike's going to make a big difference. If you have an ill handling or bad geometry or whatever on a bike, not a very good engine, it's going to be a detriment. But I've always felt like kind of that purist, making the most from the person that's the racer. Is always come on 2 wheels, right? 4 wheels, there's a lot of other things that kind of play into it. And I'm not going to diminish the talent level of any 4-wheel racer, because it's still, an absurd amount of talent to go race four wheels at a very high level. Probably the coolest moment for me, and kind of an aha moment on two wheels. I've been around it my whole life, but really the one that stuck with me was MotoGP at Indianapolis. We were standing down in turn one in the paddock area in turn one, just on the inside of turn one, and to see the bikes come, down the straightaway at 200 miles an hour plus, and then to brake and make about a 40 mile an hour left-hand corner right in front of us. I mean, and the duration was really small, and I said, "Yep, that's super incredible." And I've been lucky enough. I've not done a track day per se. I'd love to go and do a track day like on a 600 or something and go have some fun. But I've stuck to the dirt side of things and do some off road and have some fun with friends. But on the other hand, I think a lot of times my talent level and my commitment level are they don't quite see eye to eye. My commitment level is usually very high, talent level is usually very low, and that's when you go back to that stupid Hertz thing. So luckily, I do have an Arai moto helmet, and I also have an Arai motorcycle helmet for when I did my two-up ride. My big thing is the respect aspect of the two-wheel side of racing, and I've been lucky enough to meet a lot of the riders and get to know them and be friends with them, and it's been special.
Yeah, it is deceiving. They make it look so easy, and you get on a motorcycle, you say, I could do that. And then you realize how quickly, how much you don't know, or how much, like I said, your commitment's there, but your body maybe and your mental state of getting that motorcycle around that turn as smooth and as clean and without crashing is more difficult than you think. So I applaud those guys in the town. Like you said, they make a huge difference. And risk, they're basically out there naked. There's nothing protecting them except for leathers and a helmet. So, and you guys, you got to roll thing crashing, and obviously stupid hurts. So I know you've had some crashes. What was your biggest crash while wearing an Arai?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, we actually, I guess I had two. I had two really big ones. Number one, Daytona. I got crashed into the outside wall. Kind of a fluke deal. Car to the outside of me misjudged and actually turned across and turned me into the outside wall head on. It hit so hard that it actually drove the right front tire into the cockpit with me. So it went through the structure, it bent the roll cage around, took all the sheet metal structure that's underneath it. We talk about G's, and people talk about getting in an airplane and going 9, 10 G's or whatever. Which that's a sustained G, right? So we know in the racing industry that there's a lot of spike G loads and it's that initial hit that can generate a big number. And so for me, I was right at around 60 G's on that particular hit. Obviously walked away, no issues, no concussion, no injuries of any sort. So very very proud of that in that particular hit. And then another hit that I had was a number of years ago. We were at Kansas. A car spun. Threats we have is the second hit. So, you take the first impact, seat belts are designed to have some stretch, right? They're supposed to give some. We can't obviously be bolted in there, ratchet strapped in there, or it would break bones and tear your body up. So I made the initial hit with the outside wall, came off the wall, seat belts had stretched a little bit. One of the other competitors was coming through at full speed and didn't see me. And so as I'm kind of coming off the wall after that first initial hit, I got hit again in the back. It split my car in two pieces, actually took the whole rear section of my car off and spun me, especially being the second hit, right? And I think a lot of racers, riders can attest to, the first one, it can be a doozy, but a lot of times it's the second part of the crash that's usually the worst. And for me, that's been the biggest proponent of good safety equipment. Knowing that you've got an EPS liner that is going to take a hit and it's going to turn right around and it's going to take another hit. Now, granted, both of those helmets, unfortunately, beautiful looking helmets, out of commission from a wearing standpoint, but I'm okay with that, right? They did their job and they held up. Probably could still wear them. Yeah, truth be told, I know that you're dressing for the crash every time. And if you use it, obviously it did its job. it's time to go to the next one and make sure that you're prepared for the next one as well. And I think sometimes racers and riders both. I was at Road Atlanta a few weeks ago for the Moto America races and had an absolute blast. But I saw two riders come up to trackside support with helmets that were obviously damaged, right? They were scuffed up, gone down, shields maybe got some road rash on them. Helmets for sure had road rash, and they say, this is okay, isn't it? I can race with this again. And I buy it on Monday and I try to eat it again on Friday. There's a good chance I'm going to get food poisoning, right? I mean, it's just how it is. And same thing with the safety equipment. Use it for what it's intended for, but then once you've had the good and you've experienced that, okay, it's time to buy another one, or it's time to get it. If you have a backup helmet, I'm lucky enough we carry 2 to 3 helmets with us at every race, just in case, right? If something were to ever happen, I know I've got a backup helmet, and I know that I'm prepared and ready to go, and that's a big part of it.
You make a good point. In motorcycling, you guys run a head and neck restraint system that holds the helmet so you don't get whiplash going forward. So what that really does is it holds the helmet, but your body and your head still trying to go forward. So your head is literally impacting and crushing the forehead liner, using up the helmet's ability to absorb energy. And then, of course, you have the wraparound head supports, which are padded, but still you're abusing the liner. The shells distribute the weight or the energy over the widest area, and the liner absorbs it, but the shells can flex and crack. So it's one of those things where people said, why would you need to replace a car helmet? You're protected by this roll cage. It's fine. But in those two instances that you experienced, I'm pretty sure, one, I've worked for the company for 36 years. I've seen liner compression that has just about used all of it. I mean, compressed 1.25 inches, or 1.5 inches of foam down to about 1/4 inch. And it's one of those things where that's a tremendous amount of energy, but from the outside it looked fine. So it's important for people to recognize it is, for the most part, a once and done. It is literally an airbag. Once it goes off, you can't tuck it back in and tape it shut. It's done. And it's expensive. I get it. You don't want to buy another $500, $600, $700 helmet. But again, it's the computer. You don't want to have to reboot the computer. You don't want to risk, because Murphy's going to make you hit the same spot, right? You hit the ground, you hit the same spot. Arais are engineered to take a lot of impacts, multiple impacts. And will you be protected? To some degree, absolutely. But helmets are compromised. Any impact will compromise it, even just a little bit. Do you really want to risk? What if you needed that little extra bit? What if the next impact is bigger? So it is a bit of an insurance policy to have a helmet, and no one wants to use it right away. They want to get the full life out of the helmet and then crashing it and then replace it after it's 5 or 6 years old.
Right.
I get that, but again, Murphy, how many people I've talked to, I just got it yesterday. I just got it last weekend, and I wrecked and I destroyed it. And I'm like, but thank God you had that helmet on, right? And they're absolutely okay. You're all protected. There's no real harm, no foul, but your body is along for the ride, and I'm sure there's a lot of squinting moments and tuck-in moments as far as waiting for that hit, and then waiting for that second hit that may or may not come. The suspense has to be just brutal. On your psyche, although it probably happens in a millisecond, you don't even recognize it.
So I think sometimes it's different. Some crashes seem like they take forever, and you're very spatially aware of what's going on, and the impact to your head, the impact to your body, and the movements that you're seeing. But then other crashes are almost like they're in that collect all that data, right? And on the Cup Series now, they're actually putting in a high-speed camera in every car, right? It's not for TV use. They don't broadcast from that particular camera. It's just a high-speed camera on the driver to watch, deflection, movement, what's going on with the roll cage, the body, all of those things. And so, for me, that's been very interesting to kind of watch is, growing up racing dirt and going back and racing dirt, especially the short track world on oval, you tend to take a hit, the head and neck, the head restraint or the head rest, your head and neck restraints kind of pulling on your neck. I tell people all the time, I'm like, for me, it's always about, every year I'm replacing that helmet, whether I feel like I've made an impact or not, right? Every time I take a big impact, I'm replacing that helmet. Again, it could go and use that helmet for 10, 15 years and never have an issue, and no harm, no foul. But for me, I've crashed in helmets that have been crashed in. I think, some of my stupidity has led to some of my aha moments in life, right? So I have to line up a lot of times. If you've created a soft spot in the liner, when you make that next impact, even though that may not be the exact spot that you're impacting, you feel those areas that you've already damaged or compromised the liner. You feel those in an impact, and it can adjust the course of the damage to your neck, to your head. It might move your head in a shell without you even trying to move your head, right? The head neck restraint is made to be very linear and pull straight, so when your head is in an impact, it's supposed to pull your head straight. But if you damage the liner on the right, even though you took a left side impact, it may allow your head to rotate in the helmet and not allow your helmet to do its job, not allow your head neck restraint without somebody that understands what a liner should or shouldn't look like. That helmet looks fine, it'll be fine, it'll last another day. But that's not really the case. And even as little as I tell people all the time, if they have a question for it, ship it up to you guys, right? If you think that it can be looked at, ship it up there. 9 times out of 10, you're going to probably give them bad news that they're going to have to change their helmet out. And it's not because you want to sell another helmet, it's because you truly believe that helmet is compromised. But I tell people all the time, if you think you're in an impact great enough that you need to send that helmet off, there's a good chance you need to replace it. But for peace of mind, go ahead and send it anyways and see what they say. And I think sometimes not knowing what the right answer is, people tend to not know that there are options, right, or that they should do that. And I think that, you've done a great job of educating the public on what should or shouldn't be done. But I think that we still have racers that need to learn that. And unfortunately, a lot of times they learn it the hard way.
Yeah. Bad decisions are good lessons, but hopefully, you can learn from them and move on. And people not knowing, you give them the advice, you give them your feedback and your experience. They have to make the decision themselves, so they want to risk it or not. I do worry about them, not truly understanding the gravity of the situation. And sometimes we're much more clear and best helmet. And Arai in particular, so many times you get the feedback from the racer, I barely hit the ground, but there's a big crack in the shell. And I'm like, well, if you crack an Arai shell, you hit really, really hard. The fact that you didn't feel like you hit very hard means the helmet did its job. It absorbed all that energy. You don't even think you hit the ground. And they get upset that such an expensive helmet cracked and failed them, and we get that a lot. We're like, it didn't fail, it did its job. It gave itself up for you. It destroyed itself in the process of making sure that you didn't get that energy. And that's an education in itself. I've jokingly had people tell me, I buy a bunch of 3 or 4 cheap helmets to race with. So it is frustrating. People have a mindset, and it's all we can do is help guide them, right, and our experience and help them understand that process. But it's great that you know all these things. It's amazing how many racers don't know and think about these things, and a lot of them don't want to. They want to focus on what they want to focus on, and not worry about the rest. So it's good that you're aware, and we appreciate you helping to share that. And hopefully more racers are like you, start learning a little bit more about the things they need to worry about. So before we joked about this. I'll talk forever, you'll talk forever, and we'll both together talk way too long. But I do want to cover a couple of, a day in the life of a NASCAR driver obviously includes sim work and then training mentally and physically. That kind of also plays to it. So, day in the life of a NASCAR driver, how do you train mentally and physically?
Yeah, so actually, as soon as we're done here, I'm getting back in the sim. That's the background you see behind me. There's actually right there, somewhere, there's a steering wheel beside me. That's actually something that they've had as part of a different unit that's here in the offices. I'm super lucky in the fact that Chevrolet and Pratt Miller allow us to come and do this. We don't get a whole lot of time in here, but when we do get time in here, you got to make the most of it, right? And on track, in the moment, the sights, the sounds, the smells, all of that. But we've come such a long way, and we've gotten so good with kind of where we're at and what we're doing. The sim is truly incredible. We're actually doing some stuff right now today. We're trying some different tire models, and it's all about what you can put in and be able to have as options, right? So we're actually creating models to simulate setup changes in the sim that then we use. It actually offloads a set of data just like you would if you were at the racetrack and had a full data system on your car. We're able to take that data, put it in, and understand what an adjustment at the racetrack is going to do. So it's pretty incredible, really, to see what they've done. So this is part of my job, whether this be at home and be on my sim at the house on iRacing and just running laps and getting that muscle memory and that hand-eye coordination, or I'm here at Chevrolet's simulator running laps. Typically for me, 1 to 2 days a week at home, I'm on the sim, and then we come in here to this particular simulator probably once a month or so, depending on who's got time, who's depending on who's got time, who's operating in here, what's going on, because this is split between the Corvette, the IndyCar, and the NASCAR program. So I think the racing gear, make sure I've got all the things I'm going to need, whether that's shields or head neck restraint, making sure that all their tethers are not compromised, looking at the seatbelts in the car, looking at fire suits, things like that. I'm going over all of that every week. Sitting in the car that I'm going to race for the next week, make sure the mirror, make sure the seat, steering wheel, all of that's in the right position. There's somebody that has measurements for all of that. But let's be honest, the measurements are great, but you buy a new part from a vendor, or all of our cars are handmade. So there's somebody that's welding each one of those cars up. So I sit in it, kind of immerse myself in each one of them, make sure that everything works. I just had a baby. My wife had a baby about 2 weeks ago. During these last 2 weeks, the majority of my day has been consumed by the baby. But for the normal regular part of the season, just making sure that you're staying focused on it. Training. For me, road biking is a big key to my training program. I can get out, get on the bike. I can be out there for 3 or 4 hours and have a heart rate that's very similar to what we have in the car. Obviously, being out in the heat, here in North Carolina, summer months get pretty sticky hot, and so having that ability to kind of train that way is a big deal. And then from there, we travel, 2-3 days a week, depending on. So by the time you get all that said and done, you've kind of had a busy week throughout the course of the days. So I'm very lucky in how we have to operate, but it's been a lot of fun.
Very cool. So congratulations on the baby. It's awesome. Your older daughter now has a living baby doll with which to help mom. So that's awesome. Mom has a helper. That's huge. So awesome. I appreciate that. That's great. And then just finish up. I know I was talking to Jeff. You actually have a bunch of performance shops that we're going to start working with you on selling Arai helmets through. I think you have 3, and they're all different venues or types.
Tire industry, right? So we serviced Hoosier Racing Tire. We're the Midwest distributor for Hoosier Racing Tire. So for the last 50 plus years, my dad's actually been in that industry and selling. Originally it was recap tires, right? And that's what everybody used to race on back in the day. And it's kind of transitioned into a product that's built specifically for that. So through that, kind of one of the things that we saw was we sell to dealers mainly. As a distributor, we're selling to dealers, very similar to what you are up there in Pennsylvania, right? Your dealer network is your main focus, and same for us, right? And so then what we saw was we were having these, a lot of them were closing up because they couldn't afford to carry inventory. They couldn't afford to have, let's just go with a helmet, for example. You're going to carry different sizes. You're going to carry different colors, especially on the motorcycle side. There's a lot more options than there are on the auto side. But for us, we saw that kind of void, and so we felt like with the network we had, it made sense to start selling some products, right? Things that a specific dealer that's maybe servicing 1 or 2 racetracks, and we felt like that adding some safety, adding some car parts that allow our customers to kind of have the ability to walk up. I mean, if you damage something on a Friday, you want to race on Saturday. I don't care how good of shipping you get from anywhere. You wreck Friday night, you're going to have a hard time finding it by Saturday. And so for us, it's just about taking care of that community, and part of what we've done is try to help our dealer network. We We try to sell through our dealer network as much as we can, but also too we try to service those customers that are walking through the doors and number one, having the product that they need, but number two, having the knowledge of the product that they need. That are in the moto industry understand the key to him being there and how important he is. The auto side is obviously realized that more and more, but he'll tell you, he goes, I'm not a great salesman, but he's like, I'm a great tech guy, right? And he really is. He's an incredible technical support guy and understanding what a rider or a driver needs, and so he's been an integral part of trying to get us, kind of going with this program as we're getting all of this started and up and rolling. We've seen a huge uptick of customers coming through and for us, and made a lot of sense, and I can't wait to see the customers' reaction once we start getting them up and rolling, and I think we're gonna make a lot of happy racers, that's for sure.
Now, we appreciate that. Having Arai in the store is huge. Letting people actually feel and try it on and see the quality. And people have heard of Arai, Formula One. We've got a pretty good following and a history, but why are they so expensive? Are they really that much better? And we feel we shine when we're compared to others. And I've had other people say, well, can I stock other brands with your helmet? I'm like, absolutely. I want people to see side by side and compare, because we shine the ability to go do it. And like you said, Friday night I crashed my helmet. I need a new one. We've overnighted early morning to Daytona a few times. Some racers that weren't quite as prepared as they should have been. But it isn't always possible to get to the first session, right? It's hard to get that 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock session when UPS or FedEx doesn't deliver until 8:30, 9, or 10. So having a dealer that's stocking, knowledgeable, understanding the difference, and it's not just, well, it's got to be better, it's more expensive. That's all they know.
Right.
So we have a small group of automotive dealers. And like I said, it's easier. We have a small group of automotive dealers, and like I said, it's easier. It's white or black frost. Black frost is only in 1 or 2 models, so it's easy. Motorcycle, cars, 1 or 2 models, 5 or 6 sizes, 2 colors. It's a little bit easier, but it's still a challenge to get guys that are willing and able to stock a helmet that's that expensive, and then educate a customer that's not used to paying that kind of money. But usually, you try and Arai on, you start thinking about it, and honestly. I'm a kind of guy, and most people like myself can't afford the best car ever, a plane, a boat, the most expensive house in the world, but almost anyone is capable of saving up enough money over a short period of time and buy the best helmet in the world. Arai is within reach of anyone that rides a motorcycle or drives a car. When I get a dealer, so that's the education process. Anyone is within reach of an Arai helmet. They just have to know that it's something that they should consider. Brick and mortar dealers are a huge part of that. The website, our training, that helps, but in the grand scheme of things, we need brick and mortar guys, because it's where those kinds of sales have to happen. And I look forward to your shops setting the world on fire and using you as an example to tell other dealers, look, he's doing it, you can do it too, kind of a thing. So it's cool. It's great that 1, you appreciate it, 2, you want to do it, 3, we can do it. And it'll just be, I think, just another advantage for our customers that are always, COVID has set the world upside down. No one has enough product. Demand is huge. Materials are hard to get. Production's hard to get. Staff's hard to get. Shipping containers are hard to get. Boats are hard to get. The ports are full. I mean, it's just a storm of all these things against us. So it's a challenge right now. I think we're at 300% of our sales last year to date. We have, I believe, as many helmets on back order as we've sold. It's just been huge, and we're trying. So anybody who's complaining about lack of inventory, we're trying. So hopefully once we get caught up a little bit, we'll have...
Which is actually right outside of the Lucas Oil driveway. And then there's one in Plymouth, Indiana, which is in northern Indiana. So 3 different places, 3 different styles of racing. A lot of customers, each store kind of has its niche market that they kind of deal with. But that being said, we're going to carry what we need for any customer that walks the door, making sure that we got them covered. But we know what each store kind of sells and who they sell to, but we're going to make sure that we're prepared for everybody.
And what's the name of the shops?
So you can look it up either Hoosier Tire Midwest. So if you look up Hoosier Tire Midwest, my last name, it's hard to say and it's hard to spell. So I was completely against that, but that's neither here nor there. but you can look it up either way. But if you find a Hoosier Tire Midwest location, that's where the parts will be at.
Cool. And never be afraid of using a word that's hard to spell or pronounce, because Arai was not and still is not very roll off the tongue. And the cool thing is when people have to say it more than once or try and pronounce it, it starts to stick. And they start to remember that's that name. And even if they say it wrong, the fact that they're thinking about it, it starts, making a mental memory or imprint. So that's a good thing. So awesome. Well, I think I've run out of things. Have we missed anything?
For our sport, for the industries, all automotive industries, right? Or auto industries, moto as well. Look forward to keeping that going and hopefully winning a lot more races and getting out of the car with that Arai helmet on. It always feels good.
We appreciate that, and we appreciate your kind words. I'm an amateur, so they needed somebody, and they voted me in to go behind the camera. So and the live thing is always nerve-wracking, and we never know who's going to be able to watch at the time. But the follow-up views, they tend to mount up, which is cool, and it gets me up to practice and gets people thinking about it. So, guys, and ones that appreciate it, they have a lot of choices. They can choose any helmet. There's a lot of aggressive companies out there, and they choose Arai, which is always appreciated. So, Justin, thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you if I ever get out from behind my desk, come out to a race one day. It's been a while since I've been allowed to get out from behind my desk. But, yeah, I look forward to coming to a race in the near future.
Absolutely, man. Thank you again. Thanks for having me on.
All right, cool. Thank you. And thank you guys for watching. We appreciate you taking the time to share with us. Again, comment, like, subscribe, go to the AraiAmericas.com website, join the list for the newsletter monthly, and again, make suggestions, information, and tech and our philosophy. So you'll have to forgive me on that. So again, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.